This week on the podcast, it is just us boys. Dinosaurs and mech suits. What could go wrong? Mendacii tells us all about Capcom's dino shooter, ExoPrimal. Sony is waving a white flag, and what does that mean for PlayStation players? We'll talk about that, and if you stick around until the end of the show, we have deals of the week for you. All of that and more in this week's episode of the podcast. Roll the intro.
Rar means I love you in dinosaur.
What?
Does it?
Why would you do that to me?
Oh, because we all lived through the nightmare together.
Why would you make me cringe like that right before the show really starts? Hello and welcome to Next to Nothing, a podcast for gamers on a budget. I'm your host, Daniecae. I'm going to plow right through this because I don't want Mendacii to make me cringe anymore. I'm also joined by the wonderful, the beautiful, the Mr. Green Elite. Green, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Okay. We're also joined by the spooky and the ookly, the Mendacii, who I'm sure is going to make me cringe with some real scene bullshit right now. How you doing, Mendacii?
I'm fine. Just thinking about possibly. Nope.
No,
I'm gonna skip it.
You're
skipping it. Yep, I'm gonna be a good guy. I'm gonna be a good guy today.
Were there X3s involved?
There were.
was your former MySpace persona X Sephiroth XX about to come out?
No, God, I don't think that I actually had one. You know how everyone had like Megan Massacre? Yeah, I didn't have anything like that at all. I think I was literally no, mine was Tyler Carmine, named after the Carmine brothers of Gears of War.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was way down the line, so I probably never had to see a locust because all my brother homies probably didn't get domed.
Nice. I don't want to talk about all the cringy aliases I had online. Thanks for watching and listening to the show. Be sure to stick around until the end of the show to hear about some awesome deals we found for you this week. Of course, if you miss any part of the show, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and everywhere podcasts are found. Of course, if you want to join us live, you can do that on Twitch every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time. Yeah. I don't think we have much else to really do housekeeping on. Do we just want to talk about ExoPrimal?
Yeah, we could do that.
All right, yeah. Let's talk ExoPrimal.
Robot dinosaurs?
Yeah, so sadly there's no robo-dinos, but there are robots and dinosaurs. It would probably be better like an Oreo if you just slapped them together. That being said, ExoPrimal is definitely a game. It's a game. It's a game that came out 4 days ago, in fact. But it also came out 8 years ago. I don't mean that as like I'm going to give you some sort of hard-hitting investigative journalism of like, actually, it's a copy. No, this game feels outdated. It feels half-baked. It reminds me of Evolve. Something that could have been really awesome and looked great on paper, but seemed to kind of fail almost at launch. So I'm going to kind of talk to you about why that is. This is also Capcom's first live service game, or rather attempt at such. So ExoPrimal is, of course, over the top in its presentation, and they don't shy away from that. They make no effort to. In fact, it's actually quite self-aware of that in that respect. This does kind of work in its favor here and there, especially when they're trying to force such a strange and convoluted story into the lap of gamers. But it becomes more of a nuisance, a trial, a time sink, or even just kind of like forgettable within the realms of the actual gameplay. A quote from Doom creator and former head of id Software came to mind while I was navigating the ridiculous obstacle course of interweaving storylines of ExoPrimal. And the quote goes like this: "Story in a game is like story in a porn movie. It's expected to be there, but it's not that important. We're here to blast through dinosaurs, sprint around in flashy mech suits, and not find out why Regina from Dino Crisis, Edie from Mass Effect, and friend of the show Indy Falco 64, and the pirate captain from season 3 of Castlevania are hanging out with us. or why the rogue AI Leviathan wants us to help him create this like perfect exosuit by feeding him battle data via destroying thousands and thousands of dinosaurs with lasers and cool tonfas and big guns, which is good because like that's all this game is. 100%. The combat flourishes with style and lacks any and all substance. Shoot, punch, charge, time your specials while you travel from point A to B, fight dinosaurs and sometimes other players, depending on what your chosen game mode is. There are two maps. There are two maps in this game from what I saw in my 6 hours of gameplay. So also take that with a grain of salt. I played this for 6 hours, but that was enough for me to be like, was it enough for me? G. There's a military airfield with everything that you would expect to see: crates, long crates, big square crates, maybe some bigger crates, some forklifts, Humvees, plane hangars with planes in them, and concrete everywhere else. Then there's a city filled with cratered roads, abandoned vehicles, trees, skyscrapers, bunch of tight alleys. And I'll say that that map right there is at least much more interesting than the other. In each of these maps, you travel from, like I said before, one point to another, doing what I said before, killing dinos. Sometimes there's an elite dinosaur like a Carnosaurus or a T-Rex, a Triceratops, you name it. And childhood you will be like, oh, I remember that, an Ankylosaurus, something along those lines. But overall, it's the same thing, carbon copy after carbon copy. You protect an objective sometimes, or you just kill dinosaurs, and then you move to the next point, you hunker down, you do it again. This entire game is this concept. Aside from the quirky cutscenes that you can watch at your own leisure as you unlock them by doing more missions with the above formula and leveling up as a player. Speaking of levels, I'm going to talk about those and the exosuits themselves now. This is basically a champs style game, like Overwatch, Siege, Paladins, Valorant, Gundam, whatever, etc. You get the idea. Each suit, Anthem, yeah. That's a really good example to use here. So each suit, right? There's only 7 unlocked at the start of this, unless you spend $15 for what's called the Head Start package, or you decided to spend $70 for the deluxe edition, and then it gives you that Head Start package as well as the season pass. And I'll talk about the season pass in a bit. So if you're playing this on Game Pass and you want the other 3 characters so you can have a 10-character roster, you're still going to have to spend $15. So doing so will unlock those characters. And I estimated, like, conservatively, that it would save you about 15 to 20 hours of in-game match time. That is not counting load times in between, of which I experienced about 3 minutes before a match and 3 minutes after a match, each match. That is not editing your mech. That is not looking at cutscenes that you unlocked. That is just pounding the pavement and going match to match. So it is a considerable amount of time that it would save you. And it's big, especially if you did want to specifically play one of those suits. Each suit belongs to one of the 3 categories of exosuits. There are support, DPS, and tank suits. So one is a healer, one is a tank, and the other one that is in the Head Start package is a DPS. All vastly different. Each mech gets its own set of weapons, its own specials. Everything is completely different with each of these suits. So if you're really bored of one and you're like, whoa, I want to play that cool looking samurai tank dude, you're either going to have to get to player level 30, which I'm going to say is probably about 10 hours of match time, or spend $15 for the Head Start package. That being said, leveling up a suit is a thing. Each suit levels up separately. So even when you have played so many hours, you have just unlocked a suit that is level 1. And in order to get it as punchy as the suit that you may have been focusing on before, you will have to start leveling it up separately. So it kind of ends up making you have this sense or feeling of loss whenever you switch to another suit. Because you're like, I could have just been focusing on this one, trying to get it to its highest potential, but I've been bored and I want to try something else. Well, you only have 6 other options if you don't have the head start pass and you're below level 10. And even that level 10, you're just unlocking the healer. It might be level 20. I can't quite remember. Regardless. So the levels actually unlock the ability for you to spend in-game currency on what are called mods. Mods you can equip that will increase your speed when your health gets low, or perhaps uh, your attack sends you up into the air. Maybe you do more damage, or you get to float down instead of just falling straight down. It changes up the gameplay considerably. There's also different things that you can attach to your rig. So I want to say that base there is a laser cannon. Otherwise, there's one that can, I believe, like jettison you up, kind of like a jetpack. And then there's one other one that's kind of forgettable, and you also have to level up in order to unlock it and get that put on your suit. So each one of these very different. Each one of them has their own levels, and sadly, I think there's a reason for why it does all of this. And I think that it might be somewhat dubious. As I said at the top, this is a live service game. The leveling system, I believe, is in place to incentivize players to put in many hours and potentially pay for some cosmetics, grab the battle pass, or grab some in game currency so that they can purchase upgrades or cosmetics. There is a correlation between how much time a gamer puts into something and how much money they might be willing to spend on it. So this is almost kind of like a hollow attempt to string out how much there is to do here. But at its base, there are 7 characters, 2 maps, 2 game modes, PvE, PvP, and more or less you play the same thing. The only difference in PvP is that sometimes a player will hop into your game from their same instanced area and shoot at you, kind of like uh, that iron, that Trials of the Iron or whatever from Destiny that I can't remember that Green will
Iron
know off the
Banner?
top. Iron Banner. Um, just and I think it's what Gambit
Yep.
when you get to
Mhm.
hop through a portal and shoot up the other team, kind of like
Yep.
that. And then they're there until you put them down. Otherwise, they're there to slow down your progress. You've probably also seen people be able to hop into dinosaurs, like control dinosaurs, and go screw people up. The only people who get to do this are the teams that fall behind. And it doesn't matter how behind or how close they are, as long as they are slightly behind, they will be given what is called a dominator. And a dominator will randomly generate a dinosaur for them to take control of T Rex, Triceratops, so on and so forth, as I had mentioned before. And you get to hop into their game and try and kill as many players and wreck their objective um, until you die. So effectively, if you're decent at playing a giant boss creature and you find them at a very, very bad time, you can absolutely swing the tide. But what if you were just barely behind them and it was a tight, evenly matched game? You will smash and break them. It doesn't feel balanced. So you have 2 maps, you have 7 characters. It is somewhat unbalanced, and it wants you to play a lot in order for you to feel like you've actually got all the tools in your box. This game does feature a loot box system, but all the loot boxes have cosmetics that range from stickers and emotes to weapons and suit skins, which are, of course, on the more basic end of the spectrum. If you're wondering about that season pass, without purchasing it, you're limited to stickers and emotes, and if I remember right, maybe some in-game currency every 5 levels ish, maybe more. And right from the get-go, if you have the season pass, it offers you a unique skin for the tank character Krieger, And from then on, it's just unique skins, weapon skins, charms, stickers, in-game currency at every single level. The skins otherwise cannot be purchased in any other fashion, thus utilizing FOMO at its highest potential. At the end of the day, ExoPrimal is a fun character action horde destroyer game that brings back memories of playing Earth Defense Force with my homies and getting to look at some really nice mech designs that feel like they could come straight out of Konami's Zone of the Enders. The combat can be pretty fun, but with very little variety and an empty feeling at the end of a long grind, no solo play story mode, and a live service model that feels fumbled at every turn, I can't recommend this game to anyone that doesn't have free access to it through Game Pass. I'm a huge Capcom fan and an even bigger fan of horde hack and slash or shooter type games. And even more than that, mechas. This game was made for me. So I don't really say this lightly. If you do have Game Pass and you've been interested or curious, I do recommend hopping in, playing about 10 to 15 games, which is going to feel like a lot by the end of it, or you're going to feel like you're having a really awesome time. After that, that's when I would say decide whether to keep it downloaded or not. Sadly, this mecha is far less than the sum of its parts and needs a hell of a lot more time in the hangar. If you are looking to try and check this out, Game Pass does state the minimum requirements are Windows 10. You need a GTX 1050 Ti or Radeon RX 560, an i5 7500 or a Ryzen 3 1200, DirectX 12, 8 gigs of memory, 4 gigs of video memory, and those are just the minimums. So this game, remember, tosses just piles waves of raptors at you. There's a lot of effects going on. So if you are playing on something that is either at that minimum level or slightly under, that was one other thing I was going to say. I have looked at this game running with my task manager open, and it does utilize about 6 gigs of memory while running. It is heavy on the CPU, very light on the GPU. I think there might be some optimization issues. There is not a memory leak, but it is pretty intense on your system. So keep all that in mind as you go in. If you do, if you don't, and if you do, I hope you have a good time because I did not. So, fellas, what do you have as far as questions, if any?
The only thing I had to say is it kind of looks like dog shit.
Yeah, like it does. At times, like it looks pretty cool, but then at other times, it's just like I remember when Warframe first came out.
Right?
Yeah, the biggest thing with games like that, like if it's gonna be a horde shooter, it's got to be a good horde shooter,
Yeah.
because like horde shooters are a dime a dozen, and most of them, at least in my opinion, most of them stuck as it is. So like,
Mhm.
if it's gonna be a horde shooter, it's got to be interesting, and that just does not look interesting to me.
Right. And personally, the variety was a big hit for me. Variety is the spice of life, man. And not all of those mechs are very interesting. So you're probably going to find the one and play it and be like, I'm bored.
Yeah. Yeah, you talking about like having like the progression system and stuff like that, like almost immediately kills any interest I have in this game. For a variety of reasons. I just don't have like that much time, right?
Yeah.
Like if I have to unlock like the wide breadth of everything, and then anytime I go to swap to a new suit, but I've already progressed past mid game, it's it's one of those things that like I call it the in my head I call it like the Aerodactyl effect, right?
Okay. Yeah.
When you think about like playing like the original Pokemon games,
Right.
and you get the old Amber, by the time that you can get Aerodactyl from the old Amber, most
Right.
of your Pokemon are like level 30, 40, 50, right? Like
Yep.
you've progressed past the point of wanting to
That is
level up
useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you've like wanted to where you want to level up a level 5 Pokemon, right? And so it's like the same thing. It's like, I'm already past the point of no return on some of these suits. Do I really want to start from zero from some of these if I have almost no time to play? Yeah, like that stuff like that kills games for me.
Yep. Yeah. That match time, by the way, is based on a 12 to 20 minute match time from what I experienced. So I averaged that right around 15 minutes per match.
Yeah.
And then you add an additional 6 minutes to that 15 for the load times in and out. And my 15 to 20 hour estimate for trying to unlock the other three suits is just based on match time alone.
Yeah.
So it requires, or rather it asks a lot of you in order to just have more variety, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
Do you want more choices? Then play this game for 20 hours.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. The gameplay loop should be captivating enough on its own. I should want to grind simply because it's that interesting. I shouldn't want to grind because it's going to make the game better.
Or complete.
Yeah. Like that's just for a game like this that doesn't work like that.
Yeah. It feels like it's trying to borrow a lot from a lot of different live service games. Like Overwatch lets you try and get to a point where you can unlock some of those characters rather than paying for them. But you have to do all the like weird little challenges and so on and so forth. This is none of it. Doesn't ask any challenges of you. The challenge is finding time to sink this much time into ExoPrimal.
Yeah. See, I'm kind of curious to see how long the game lasts. A lot of people I have heard talk about this game haven't been super thrilled on it. So the lifespan is something I'm concerned about, but we can keep an eye on that, huh?
Yeah, there is. They do have a roadmap. If you're curious, you can find that. They have, of course, lots of crossover events, which sound like a whole bunch of fucking cosmetics, and again, not a lot of substance for games like Monster Hunter and Street Fighter 6, two games that I also love and have talked about on this show before. So we'll likely see some Rathalos armor or something like that you can spend $10 to $15 on. Yippee! But maybe they'll do something cool and we'll actually fight a Rathalos or a Devil Joe or something like that in a mech, which sounds really cool. But again, we'll just have to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got nothing else. Do we want to go right into our news story for the week?
Yeah, let's wash our mouth out.
We've been getting a lot of news around Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, and until that deal is wrapped up, we won't really discuss much more about it, but we do want to discuss probably the most contentious title involved in this deal. Like the title that has companies riled up, because if Microsoft buys it, that could mean trouble for other companies' player bases, right? And that, of course, is the FPS juggernaut COD, Call of Duty. COD has been a ubiquitous addition to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, and even mobile for years. It's I think a lot of companies are seeing it as a kingmaker. Who has the best COD deal will probably win in the long run. And so it's no wonder that Sony has been fighting tooth and nail to stop a merger between Microsoft and ABK, because that gives Microsoft all the power over one of the biggest titles in the industry. And it seems like now they finally have to wave that white flag as the inevitable merger creeps forward. Last week, Sony signed an agreement with Microsoft to keep COD available on its platform for the next 10 years. And we're going to talk about some other implications here, but first, a quote from Phil Spencer. quote, "We are pleased to announce that Microsoft and PlayStation have signed a binding agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation following the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. We look forward to the future where players globally have more choice to play their favorite games." The deal, however, only covers Call of Duty. That's it. Only Call of Duty. No other ABK games are covered by this deal. So, Diablo, not covered. Overwatch, not covered. Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, Tony Hawk, not covered. So,
Yikes.
yeah, big yikes, right? Because especially like I think Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, to me, those are like PlayStation games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the best Spyro titles were on the PlayStation 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that often about like GameCube for Nintendo consoles for Spyro.
Yeah.
Or Crash really is like PlayStation. Tony Hawk, another good example of like, you know, the what was it? Pro Skater 2 was a like PlayStation 1 classic.
Yeah, and I mean, I played it on the N64, but I was a Nintendo kid and a PS1 guy. A PS1 was for the JRPGs.
Yeah. The deal is on par with their agreement with Nintendo that they made back in February. The agreement between Nintendo and ABK or Microsoft. And that detail that it is just for COD was confirmed by The Verge. Quote, "From day one of this acquisition, we've been committed to addressing the concerns of regulators, platform and game developers, and consumers. Even after we cross the finish line for this deal's approval, we will remain focused on ensuring that Call of Duty remains available on more platforms and for more consumers than ever before." And that was from Brad Smith, Microsoft's president. He said that in a comment on this deal. It is also worth noting the importance of this deal, as the FTC has pretty much limited options in furthering their attempts to block the merger in the US, and this was Sony's only leverage that they had. Even admitting so back in February, where Jim Ryan, Sony's PlayStation boss, told ABK execs as much at a meeting with regulators from the UK, or from the EU, I should say. Yeah, so just like my quick final thoughts on it is, really for the moment, this means if COD is your primary game, it's safe on PlayStation. But if you wanted Overwatch on PlayStation, if you wanted Diablo on PlayStation, or Sekiro or Spyro, any of those titles on the PlayStation in the future, that's really iffy. The Brits still have to weigh in on the merger. They're the last ones, I believe. We'll see if the FTC attempts anything else, but as of actually yesterday, they also lost their attempt to pause the deal from going through. So pretty much for everyone, it looks like it will be going through, and we'll talk about what the merger will actually look like for players once that happens. But do you guys have any thoughts, any opinions?
I would think it's a smart move on Microsoft's deal anyways, to like keep it open for every console, because they're going to be making money regardless. Like, if they can sell the game on other consoles and have the store that's in those games, like Warzone's cosmetics and all that, it's a no-brainer to keep all that open anyways. So I think that this just shows that we might be seeing the end of the console wars soon, hopefully, and we just start seeing everything go on everything at once, and they can actually tap the market, and everyone can play new games on PC or PlayStation or Xbox. So we'll see.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that Green just said. There's something interesting that kind of came to mind while you were talking, Green, is that they have to start thinking like a video game company and less like a console hardware company with this acquisition, because the more open they are to selling to more consoles, the more open that your community becomes, the larger it can become. You have crossplay. That means that people that made the decision, sorry about your decision, if you bought an Xbox Series S because it was $300 and that's, viable, but your friend has a PS5 and you guys want to play Diablo together, like, wouldn't it be great? Or like if you had an Xbox Series S and your friend has a PS5 and they're like, you should get Diablo. Are you going to buy it if you can't play it with your friend and you've never really been interested in Diablo? That's just it. Is like they need to start thinking like a software company, and if they do, I think that it'll actually. I think that it could be good. On the other hand, there's no way to tell. There's no way to tell at this point, and this acquisition's been murky from the start. I'm interested in seeing on where it goes, but man, this has been like the stairway to heaven. It is so goddamn long.
Sorry, I missed my mute button like 6 times there. Yeah. this whole process, like part of the reason we haven't talked about it like outside of like when it was announced is because there's so much legal mumbo jumbo and it changes like every week.
Yep.
Like this was like, to me, this was like the first big wow, okay, this is actually happening. We can start to see what effects might actually come from this. But yeah,
not just like throwing pennies into the wishing well and just being like, maybe. Yeah, like you could start to see things kind of form and actually make some viable ideas come from it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really have any other thoughts at the moment. If you like COD, this is good news. You can play it pretty much anywhere still.
At least for the next 10 years.
At least for the next 10 years. Who knows? Maybe like at some point Sony will shutter in the next 10 years.
Oh, that'd be fucking weird.
Wouldn't it?
Are you talking about as a software company or as a hardware company or just in a video game sense?
Just in general. Imagine some weird catastrophic series of events that could somehow close Sony.
Yeah, it would need to be a lot of things with how much hardware they make.
It would have to be something big, like they actually discovered that Sony and Nintendo were killing dolphins.
Yeah,
real
sacrificing
IRL
them. Yeah, Sony actually worships Beelzebub. Who knew?
Was the word catastrophic not like indicative that it would have to be something like major?
It would have to be massive.
I would say
catastrophic.
Yeah, I would say like full on Ragnarok, full on Götterdämmerung, the twilight of all things, because of like Sony Pictures Entertainment, Sony fucking TVs and everything else that they make.
Fucking appliances.
Yeah, all their appliances. Yeah, like it's a fucking
their car that they're building.
Company. Yeah,
catastrophic. Apocalyptic.
Apocalyptic Armageddon.
Mm-hmm. So, do we want to talk about deals of the week?
Hell yeah, man. Let's do it.
Hell yeah. Let's get right into it. So I'm going to start out. This is from GOG, Good Old Games, GOG.com. Make classics last forever sale. Some pretty awesome games on here, including Empire Earth Gold Edition. I think I saw Empire Earth 2 Gold Edition as well. Empire Earth is one of like my favorite old school RTSs. It was one of the ones that my dad had on his spare computer that I played the shit out of as a kid. I'm pretty sure my dad is in the chat. He can attest to that. There's also Spore, Civ 4, Stalker, SWAT. The sale goes for another 5 days. Go check that out. Mendacii, what do you got?
I've got one of my favorite games, and it also came out this year. It is Hi-Fi Rush. It is a whopping 28% off. It is $21.59 over on Fanatical. You can find that link down below. And it is a wonderful rhythm-based character action game with phenomenal voice acting, amazing music, and a really wonderful story. And that's a game that I could not play enough of and can't wait for more. So couldn't recommend it enough, especially for that price.
Hell yeah. Mr. Green Elite, what do you got?
Well, I got V Rising by Stunlock Studios. It's on sale right now on Steam for 20% off, which is a total of $15.99. Watched a lot of people play this. This is still an early access game. The reviews on it are very positive, all like through and through. With that being early access, that means that there is more stuff coming to this game. So, if you want to get ahead of the curve and pick that up now, then I would do it now while it's 20% off.
Hell yeah. I don't have anything else. Do we just want to talk about what we got coming up this week?
Sure.
Yeah, so this week, I think the last episode of session 6 of VR Arcana goes up, right? Question mark?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We the last week's episode, I spaced it, getting it finished up. It went out yesterday. So if you're watching it, if you're watching the show right now, go check that out. You can check that out. And then subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of VR Arcana. And then subscribe so you don't miss anything else on this channel. And then I am working on some other stuff. We have a bonus episode that we are recording with Indie Falco 64 and Quasar.exe for VR Arcana. And you guys can probably see that in 2 weeks, I think. Yeah. Otherwise, you can shitpost with me on Twitter at Daniecae, Daniecaae. Also on Threads under the same name. If you want to check me out on Threads. I haven't really posted anything there yet. Actually, I haven't posted anything there yet. Give me a reason to post on Threads. Hit me up. That's what I've got. Green, what do you got coming up?
Well, I recently purchased a new monitor today after an absolute shitstorm from Amazon Prime Day with an Acer Nitro. Don't recommend picking that up on Amazon. If you did, I'm sorry. But then I switched to a 32-inch monitor from I picked up from Best Buy. It's a Samsung. It is massive. So this week I'm gonna get used to being on a 32-inch monitor a foot and a half from my face. So streams will be weird. I also start a new job next week. But for now, it's gonna be just pretty much playing some Hunt Showdown, maybe some Battle Bit. We'll see. You can catch all that on twitch.tv/Mr. Elite. If you want to chat with me, you can always hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all the works at Mr. Elite.
Mendacii, what do you got coming up?
Man, we've got so many different games coming out in such a short amount of time. A week from today, Remnant 2 will drop. I've been kind of dicking around playing a bunch of different games lately, just kind of biding my time. So really, probably just hanging out, doing video games, doing school stuff. Might be on Twitter here and there at only Mendacii, and counting down the days until I become an interdimensional hunter of aberrations. Again, wearing cowboy hats and using Gatling guns to destroy things. And I'll be talking about that experience on the show in a couple weeks. Otherwise, Baldur's Gate 3 and God, yeah, there's so much. I can't even. So you'll just keep coming back to next to nothing, and we'll keep having reviews for you.
Heck yeah. I guess I can give a sneak peek of what I'll be working on for a review. My one of my prime purchases was a Magic Raven Magic portable monitor that I've been using. So about a week into it, I've been loving it. I'll get more specifics with you guys maybe next week after I have some time with it a little bit more. But yeah, thank you for watching and listening to the show. Your time and attention is always appreciated. Don't forget to let us know all of your thoughts and opinions on what we talked about in the comments on YouTube. We love seeing those comments, and we actually respond to every single one as we get them. Otherwise, don't forget to hang out with us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and everywhere podcasts are found. Until next week, stay safe, stay healthy, keep fighting the good fights, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.